I call to order the Lake Havasu City Council regular meeting on Tuesday, August 8, 2017 at 6 p.m. We'll now have an invocation by Pastor Ryan Speakman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the honor, council members. Father God, we just thank you for tonight, Father. We thank you for your presence here. We thank you for the honor of serving this city and its people, Father God. We pray for the presence of your Holy Spirit in this meeting tonight. I pray for a special blessing over Mayor Nexon and the city council members, Lord. Just anoint them to make good, godly decisions for our city. We just thank you for wisdom over them, Father God, and again, a special blessing over them. We pray for supernatural protection and blessing over our policemen, our firefighters, our EMTs, all the emergency workers of the city, and a blessing over the city workers, Father God. We just thank you for anointing them to do their jobs well. And Father God, we just take authority over any spirit of destruction that would try to come against Lake Havasu City, whether man-made or natural. We say no to those things. This city is safe. This is a city of peace. This is a city of prosperity. And Father God, we just declare Lake Havasu holy ground. This is your city, Father God. This is part of your kingdom, Father. And we just pray in Jesus' name that your kingdom come and your will be done in Lake Havasu City and in this world as it is in heaven. And we pray in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, Jesus the Messiah. Amen. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Would the city clerk please call the roll?
Council members Mark Nexon.
Here.
Donna McCoy.
Here.
Jenny Koch. Cal Sheehy.
Here.
Michelle Lynn.
Here.
David Lane.
Here.
Gordon Grove.
Here.
All right, item 5 on our agenda this evening is our initial call to the public. This is where our citizens have an opportunity to address the city council on any issue under the city's jurisdiction. Now, if you do decide to come up, the microphone is on. There's a little box up there. I don't see it. Okay, can't see it from here. But the little box to your right, green means go, yellow means you have a minute left, and red means 5 minutes have expired, and that means your time has as well. When you do come up, please state your name and spell your last name for the benefit of the city clerk. Now, under call to the public, we will listen intently, but under Arizona open meeting laws, we really can't respond to you. So if there's something you want to speak on that's agendized in tonight's agenda, I would suggest that you wait for that. So with that, would anybody like to address the council as part of call to the public? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Would any of the council members like to remove any of the items for separate discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I move to accept the consent agenda as posted.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we do have a motion and a second to accept the consent agenda as presented. Any final discussion? We're ready to vote?
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, item 7, correspondence, communications, petitions, announcements, and the city manager report. First up, we're going to have a presentation by our Havasu Youth Advisory Council. So I call on Jerry Bracamani for an introduction of all these fine folks.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight, the Youth Council has a special presentation for you. They have been asked by the League of Arizona Cities and Towns and the Center for Future of Arizona to be key speakers at the youth program held at the League Conference this year. They will present their story on how they set out to be change agents in this community. As part of their presentation, they were specifically asked to present an Ignite presentation. And an Ignite presentation is strictly 5 minutes long, 20 slides with 15 seconds spent on each slide. And these presentations are promoted under a slogan, enlighten us, but make it quick. The Youth Council members nominated Ella to be the speaker at the event because of her amazing speaking skills. Tonight, Ella will practice her speech on you as if you are the youth council that she's going to be presenting to. And in turn, you will learn their story of their adventure to create change in Lake Havasu City to improve teacher retention. Hayak, please stand up so I can introduce all of you. Maria Fernandez, she's a new incoming freshman member. Gavin Lintz, new incoming freshman member. Ella Wofford, returning sophomore member. Cheyenne Halfacre Bowie, she's a returning sophomore member. Tatum Bracamani, returning junior member. Hayden Lintz, returning junior member. Carla Betancourt, returning senior member. And Jersey Orias, returning senior member. So, okay, you can be seated now. So I'm very proud of them and their accomplishments. They spent many hours outside the classroom during their summer, in between sporting activities, family vacations, extracurricular activities, to see the project to completion. They're a really amazing group of young leaders in our community, and I'd like to introduce Ella to come up and start her presentation.
Okay, so, hi, I'm Ella Wofford. Okay, so, Hi everyone, my name is Ella Wofford. I'm a sophomore from Lake Havasu City High School, and today I'm going to share with you how we were able to influence our community and make a large impact with Project We Outcare. So don't be afraid to make a difference, and this program is awesome because it gives you everything you need to drive change in our community. Project We Outcare started as an idea in our minds, but we all know that ideas are just garbage because everyone really has them. So you have to be willing to step outside your comfort zone and make these ideas happen. At first, we weren't really sure what civic health behavior we wanted to change, but we knew that losing our teachers could potentially destroy our community's economic health if it didn't happen. So we needed to build social cohesion to increase our teacher retention. Now think of that one teacher that has influenced your life. Now imagine them gone. Where would you be? And how would the class after you act? And how would they be? So what would happen if this teacher was gone? And this is what's happening in our council. It was a turbulent time for our teachers. So right after we were asked to participate in democracy, there was a student-organized walkout at our high school. And this was to protest the teachers' low salaries as well as their benefit cuts. Our community refused to pass bonds and overrides over a long period of time, and our students were really annoyed with it too. So to launch our idea, we needed to figure out the what, the why, and the how. We used Simon Sinek's we use Simon Sinek's people don't change what you do, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. So how will we influence others to create change? And what is our plan overall? So this is the chart that we used, and we filled in everything ourselves, so this was a really great reference for us. So we took the approach of coming up with the why first, as if our community already provided the service. Lake Havasu City creates a strong social cohesion centered around its beloved educators, and educators from all across the nation are drawn to Lake Havasu to make us their hometown. Next, we asked ourselves the how. How will we influence others to give us the power to create the change that we wanted to make? And if it was easy, it would have already been done. So in order to talk to the community, we had to engage them. So we talked to everyone, even our grandparents and their generation who believed that they didn't have to pay for any more education. But we didn't just talk to them, we took a different approach. Instead of giving them our opinion, we asked for theirs. So we found that the community did in fact support our teachers, and we received some positive feedback. Some teachers said that they couldn't afford to live here with the current salaries. As you can see, the current salary was $31,500. And others said that they moved because they couldn't afford to pay for school supplies out of their pocket so that they could supply their classrooms. But some just left because they didn't feel rooted in our community or supported by its members. And we knew we could fix that. So that was the means to our what. We can't change salaries or take on bonds and overrides alone, but we could surely make our teachers feel more appreciated for what they do for us. So we used local media and social media to get the word out. We challenged everyone to outcare the person before them that had donated to us. So by posting one picture per day, thanking them, we were able to get a bunch of support from our community. We also served as guest speakers on the local radio, at Rotary clubs, at the Chamber of Commerce, and we partnered with a nonprofit foundation as a pass-through for donations so they could be tax write-offs. And we were joined for the Citizens for Havasu Schools so we could help pass a successful bond and override in November. And in December, as part of our project, we delivered 42 care packages to our new teachers. And this included school supplies, gift certificates, and business cards. Our community made it rain for our teachers, which was the most rewarding part for me. We ended up collecting $5,000 in school supplies and over $4,500 in cash donations. And with these cash donations, we created a website for our teachers so that they could upload a profile and a wish list, and the community could get to know them, and therefore they could donate to them year round. And one Rotary Club even pledged to us that they will support us with our further needs. This program has impacted our community immensely. Along with the successful bond and override passages in November, we believe our care packages played a role in it. Certified teacher turnover reduced from 22% last year to only 8% this year. We stepped outside of our comfort zones to join this competition. The community now seeks for our input on many matters. We serve on a few committees, including the Vision 2020 team, an award-winning and community-valued economic revitalization plan. Finally, we think everyone should take this opportunity because it is a real-life situation that teaches you everything you need to know about becoming a civically engaged person. Communication, collaboration, but most importantly, passion. So, we hope you will sign up and outcare us. Believe in and act on your ability to create change, and we know that you won't regret it. We are super excited to participate with everyone next year. So, with that, thank you.
Are there any questions for the Youth Advisory Council and Project We Outcare? It looks like you're off the hook. Oh, no. Councilmember Grove.
I have to ask this question because I was actually substitute teaching the day that you guys took all those care packages around in the high school. What was the most unusual reaction that you got from one of the teachers?
The most unusual reaction I thought was some teachers were kind of confused. They were confused. They didn't really know what was going on. So after we told them what was happening, they were super happy. But I think the most initially weird reaction was they weren't really sure what was really happening. But I think that it was good in the long run for them.
Yes.
So the program sets up a system whereby the citizens in the community can assist the teachers with the supplies that they need to outfit their classrooms, correct?
Yes.
And you set up a website to do that. So if I'm interested in assisting a local teacher in acquiring the supplies that they need for their classroom, I can go to the website and I can procure those items for that teacher?
Yeah, once you click on the desired teacher that you want to donate to, you can click on their wish list, which will... Okay, she's going to bring it up. The website actually launched yesterday, and we have 30 teachers signed up so far, but the great thing about this website is that teachers can sign up as they go, so these 30 teachers aren't the only teachers. So here it comes. Okay.
That's a very cool concept. What's the web address?
It's projectweoutcare.com.
Thank you. What a great way for citizens to, show that they care for our teachers and what they need in the community and be able to get those things to them directly.
So we have just a simple mission statement and what we're about as a council. So then you can either search for a desired teacher or you can click on a school that you know that that teacher works at. So Sotner. So there has everything about her that you really need to know, a quote that she likes or just something that she would not need to know about her. And you can shop her, once you click on that, you can shop her wish list, which takes you right to Amazon. And from there, once you want to order something for your teacher, you have to make sure you put in the school address. Because I know we've had some problems with with Amazon using your account, but make sure that when you set up the address, it goes right to the high school.
Mr. Mayor,
Good job. Yes.
if I may, I just want to say you guys have done a great job. We're so very proud of everything that you've done. And I really like the wish list. That's awesome. It's a great way for us to help the teachers. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Great job, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're going to move on to something less exciting, and that's the investment report at June 30, 2017. It's in your packet for review and questions if you have any. Are there any questions? No? Okay, then next, the city clerk will announce vacancies on the Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions.
Mayor and City Council, there are a number of vacancies on Lake Havasu City boards, committees, and commissions. The following is a listing of those vacancies. Airport Advisory Board, 1 regular pilot member, 1 alternate pilot member, and 1 alternate non-pilot member. Board of Adjustment, 6 regular members, 3 alternate members. Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, 1 regular member, 1 student member. And the Public Safety Personnel Retirement System, 1 regular member. Anyone interested can pick up a packet at City Hall, and they are also available on the city's website.
All right, thank you very much. Next up is our city manager's report. Mr. Cassens.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council. I've set out before you a hard copy of the presentation on the Havasu Now app. Councilmember Grote at the last meeting had asked for some statistics about the Havasu Now app, which we launched about a year and a half ago, I believe. Since we launched the app, which provides an opportunity, a tool that citizens can use to report things that might be out of place or broken or needs attention by the city. They can download the Havasu Now app into their smartphone or their smart device and take a picture, report that leaky fire hydrant or pothole directly to the city. It goes directly to the department that can fix it, and it gets into our system and provides a paper trail whereby we can track the progress of that report. So since we launched, we've had 556 reports, of which you can see about 146 of them were code enforcement related. And to the right is the as much detail as we can get as far as the various categories of reports. The number on the far right column is the actual number. And the color code pertains to this pie chart, which is the same numbers applied graphically, as you can see. So there's neighborhood property issues, loud noises, animals, neighbor property complaints, you can see is the bulk of the reports that we get. Code enforcement, of course, issues related to streets, the potholes, et cetera. Police matters, and then everything else. And in the prior list, you can see in the gray is the everything else, from weed burning to water quality to any number of variety of reports that we get. Also included is a reporting mechanism whereby we can get comments on customer satisfaction. You can see that the employee effectiveness in responding to the reports, they're over half rated as superior, and another 19% rated it as good. So it looks like the response was good. The expectations were met or exceeded. Employee courtesy, you can see a great number of them reported as superior and good. And the time to respond, the actual response time, was mostly rated as superior or good. And this chart's a bit difficult to interpret at first blush, but what it is, it shows the green bar on the far left shows that out of those 530 plus reports, 230 of them were addressed within the first day. And as you go across there, so from 2 to 3 days to get it fixed, there were 78 of those 533, and so forth across to the right. So 4 to 5 days, there was 37 of those. And then over on far on the right, the lower green bar is the 69 of those 533 reports that were addressed within 2 weeks. And then the red part, or the 72, is our reports that took more than 2 weeks to address. Now, that is most likely code enforcement, because as you know, it can take a number of weeks to come to resolution on those code enforcement complaints. So all in all, I think we've had a good response on Havasu Now. We would like to know how many downloads there have been, and compare some more stats as to how much that app is being used. Unfortunately, we're not able to get that information. We just don't know how many people have downloaded it but haven't used it yet, but we're working on that. And we also have commentary that folks have given after the fact, and I just got that commentary today, the comments themselves, and I'm sorting through that information. And much of it is what you might expect, neighbor disputes or loose animals. There's a complaint in there about a Facebook page, and it runs the gamut of things that people complain about. So hopefully this satisfies the curiosity regarding Havasu Now. We would like people to use it more because it's a great way for us to keep track of this stuff. And all in all, once we get these things addressed, it makes for a better community overall. I have the monthly tax report. This has been sent to you. I will share it with the rest of the community. This is not only the tax report, the monthly tax report that you see here every month for the month of June, because June is the end of our fiscal year. This is actually the fiscal year-end tax report. So what you're seeing here is going all the way back to 2006 and 2007, which again we called the good old days, that was our peak year. That 07 bar all the way on the left was our peak year. And as we've been following this moving forward, year to year, obviously you can see the graphic representation of the recession. And I am tickled to report that at the year end, in fact, we have exceeded pre-recession tax receipt levels. The restaurant and bar tax, that actually exceeded pre-recession levels back in 2013, and the hotel motel tax exceeded pre-recession levels in 2015, but this is the first I've been able to report that we have exceeded the pre-recession levels with the overall 2% city sales tax or transaction privilege tax. And we've exceeded it by a whopping $21,943. So in a $21.5 million revenue source, we'll take it, $22,000. I'm good with that. It is 0.3% below what our revenue projections were. And that's acceptable too. 0.3% actually is great testimony for the revenue forecasting ability of our admin services and finance crew. So well done, everyone. And you look at the tracking of the red line, which is the budget amount, versus the tracking of the blue line, which is the revenue. You can see that we've got it right down to frog hairs as far as what we're budgeting compared to what our projected revenues are. So we have a razor thin budget, and it's coming right. We're right there. So well done, staff. And looking at this particular graphic, which is the one that you see, and that's the blue line is our 2%. The brown line, the little one, is the hotel motel tax, and the bar and restaurant tax on the very top. Looking at this fiscal year, month to month versus last fiscal year, month to month, the green bar is the current fiscal year, month to month, and the blue bar next to it is the 2016 or the prior fiscal year, month to month. So you can see that in each every month of the last fiscal year, it has exceeded the 2016 levels in each month in the prior year. And looking at the industry, the various categories of tax receipts that we have, and this is, this year is the bar on the right, and last year is the bar on the left. And you can see again that we have exceeded receipts in every category with the exception of communication and utilities, which is showing a dip, but that dip is actually our own doing. We were paying state and local taxes on water utilities unnecessarily. So we petitioned the Department of Revenue to return those taxes to us, which they did, which obviously lowers our tax revenues in that category, but it's all the same money. So even though it's showing up as a negative in this bar, it's really a wash. Where's my report? Here it is. Excuse me. In code enforcement, as of the last report, code enforcement staff has received 34 new cases, performed 32 primary inspections, performed 33 follow-up inspections, sent 15 violation notices, and closed 25 cases, and we currently have 46 open cases in code enforcement. And building permits, with our new fiscal year just beginning earlier this month, we've issued an equal amount of residential single-family home permits compared to the same time period last year. That's 23. We've issued two more new commercial building permits. That's 2 more than the same time period last year. And we've performed 338 plan reviews. That's 12 more plan reviews than the same time period last year, and performed 981 building inspections. That's 46 fewer inspections than the same time period last year. And there are no special events to report at this time, and I'd be pleased to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for the city manager? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move on to the public hearing portion of our agenda. First up, item 8.1 is regarding a series number 10 liquor license, London Bridge Market. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, Lauren K. Merritt has applied for a Series 10 beer and wine store liquor license for London Bridge Market located at 781 Lake Havasu Avenue North. This location has held a Series 9 liquor license since 1999. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. During the new development code adoption process in 2016, this property was rezoned from M1P district to light industrial district, which does not currently allow alcohol sales. However, staff determined this to be an oversight that will be addressed through a code amendment. So staff considers the continued sale of liquor at this location a legal, non-conforming use until the code is amended. Based on that, staff recommends approval of this liquor license.
All right. This is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion?
Please.
I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control approve a Series 10 liquor license for London Bridge Market, 781 Lake Havasu Avenue North.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? We are ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you. Item 8.2 is regarding a series number 12 liquor license. Ms. Williams.
Thank you. Mayor and City Council, Jesus Eric Vasquez Sarmiento has applied for a Series 12 restaurant liquor license for El Mariachi Mexican Restaurant located at 141 Swanson Avenue, number 5. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. Staff recommends approval of this liquor license.
Once again, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion?
Yes, please.
I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor License and Control, approve a Series 12 liquor license for El Mariachi Mexican Restaurant at 141 Swanson Avenue, number 5.
Second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay. Item 8.3 is also regarding a liquor license, a series number 7 liquor license. Ms. Williams.
Mayor and City Council, Andrea Dahlman Lukowitz has applied for a Series 7 beer and wine liquor license for Lake Havasu Golf Club located at 2400 Clubhouse Drive. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. Based on the above, staff recommends approval of this liquor license. I will note that the location address is incorrect in your council communication, so when making the motion, if you could please note 2400 Clubhouse Drive.
Okay.
Thank you.
Once again, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
motion.
Please.
Let's go back to it. I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control approve a Series 07 liquor license for Lake Havasu Golf Club, 2400 Clubhouse Drive.
Second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Looks like we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you. And one more, item 8.4 regarding a Series 12 liquor license. Ms. Williams.
Thank you again. Andrea Dahlman Lukowitz has applied for a Series 12 restaurant liquor license for Lake Havasu Golf Club located at 2400 Clubhouse Drive. All posting requirements have been met, all fees have been paid, and no objections were received. Staff recommends approval of this liquor license. And again, the address is incorrect and it's 2400 Clubhouse Drive.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
motion.
Please.
I move to recommend that the Arizona Department of Liquor Licenses and Control approve a Series 12 liquor license for Lake Havasu Golf Club, 2400 Clubhouse Drive.
Second motion.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? We're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 8.5, introduce ordinance number 17-1184, amending Lake Havasu City Code Section 8.16.130, mooring and channel to include city parks, and Section 11.06.330, launching watercraft and overnight mooring prohibited, to remove mooring. Chief.
That's a long one, wasn't it?
Yes, it is.
All right. Mayor, Council, we currently address no mooring between the hours of 11 and 5 a.m. in two areas. It's addressed in the Bridgewater Channel, and it's addressed in Rotary Park, in London Bridge Beach and Rotary Park. And the difference between the two is no mooring in the channel between those hours is a civil citation. No mooring in our city parks, which would be Rotary Park and London Bridge Beach, are addressed in an ordinance that makes it a criminal matter. So if you moor your boat overnight in Bridgewater Channel, you're going to receive a civil citation. If you moor it overnight in London Bridge Beach, or Rotary Park, you're going to get a criminal citation, and it brings in a whole host of pretty steep fines for the actual same act. This gets a little bit confusing for the officers on what citation they're going to write on, dependent upon where they're located down there, and sometimes, a few feet is the difference between whether you're in Bridgewater Channel or you're actually in the park. It also can create some confusion for the public. And so in order to kind of rectify that, what we are recommending in this ordinance introduction is to take the no mooring in city parks out of the ordinance, section 8, and make sure I'm actually getting these two correct. Take it out of section 11 and move it into 8, and then just leave in that section, no launching of watercraft in city parks, because originally that was created with the primary intention of keeping the businesses from utilizing the parks to launch their watercraft.
Okay. Any questions initially before I open up the public hearing? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. So now it'll just be a civil citation.
Correct.
For everything.
Mooring between the hours of 11 and 5 a.m. will be a civil citation in the park and in the Bridgewater Channel.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, so to clarify, there's some discussion that we're changing the process of what is mooring and what it is. It's currently not allowed in the channel from 11 to 5 a.m. So all we're doing is really making it easier for the police department to make that happen, and also any offenders that might do that. So
correct, Councilperson Sheehy. It's currently against ordinance in the parks and in Bridgewater Channel. This is just reducing it in the parks to a civil citation away from criminal.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So I would make a motion.
Please.
I move to introduce ordinance number 17-1184, amending Lake Havasu City Code, section 8.16.130, mooring in the channel, to include city parks, in section 11.06.330, launching watercraft and overnight mooring prohibited, to remove mooring.
Second motion.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
All right, item 8.6, adopt ordinance number 17-1185, approving a request to rezone tract 2194, block 7, lots 5 through 7, 1536, 1540, and 1546 El Camino Drive from C1 Limited Commercial District to C2 General Commercial District. Mr. Smelling.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. The zoning request in front of you includes 3 lots, generally a little bit west of Highway 95 and north of Palo Verde. These are the 3 lots. At the corner, they're at the corner of El Camino Drive and Alley 21. Here's the zoning in the area. You may remember rezoning these 3 parcels here within the last few months. This area is generally turning over, if you will, to a little bit heavier commercial uses, and therefore the request to rezone to C2. And the Planning Commission recommended unanimous approval on this ordinance. And that concludes my presentation.
All right. Any questions for Stuart?
Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
Yeah, Stuart, was there any objection from the neighborhood?
We received no objection through the mail, and we didn't receive any objection at the Planning Commission meeting either.
Okay. All right. Once again, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the City Council on this item? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing. Yes. Oops.
There. Do we know what they're planning on building on that lot? That's right next to a restaurant, correct?
That is correct. And I know that there are individuals here representing the applicant. If you'd like to ask them that question.
Absolutely. Do we?
Is the applicant here?
We're going to park RV rental trailers. We're going to fence it in and use it for storage there, just for temporary.
Okay, thank you. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Any other comments?
I'll make a motion, if
Please.
I may. If I can find it here. I lost it. I move to adopt ordinance number 17-1185, rezoning tract 2194, block 7, lots 5 through 7, from C1 Limited Commercial District to C2 General Commercial District.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Stuart. Item 8.7, approve master service agreement with Level 3 Communications to provide voice and data communications for city operations. Jonathan.
How you doing, Mayor, Council? This is a little more difficult, I guess, than the last one. So the purpose of this MSA is to essentially switch the city's voice and data services to a new enterprise carrier with more services and increased bandwidth. So we can support future Wi-Fi systems for public safety, operations, and other administrative areas. Currently, we've maxed out the available bandwidth, and we've looked at adding capacity through our current carrier, but it wasn't cost effective, nor did they have the services that we're looking for. So we had to look for other options at that point. We did find Level 3 Communications. They're a enterprise carrier. Essentially, if you haven't heard of Level 3, they are the largest data. They have the largest data network in the world at this point, and kind of lucky. They have their network running adjacent to the city, so it connects Vegas to Phoenix, and they have a data center at both ends. At that point, we engaged with them just to see if there was the ability to gain their services and to see if it was cost effective and what it would take. Year and a half, maybe 2 years. Here we are. So they just proposed a plan to us that provides all the service we wanted, and it's actually at a cost-effective rate. So the 4 primary services that we're looking at are, we're going to increase our network capacity 40 times. We'll essentially go from a 50 megabyte connection to 2 gigs of data. So we'll be limitless on the Wi-Fi and the internet that we can provide city services. We're also going to switch our phone system over from an analog to a full digital. It's what we call SIP. It basically runs your phones through the internet with extended minutes for long distance as well. So our monthly phone bill won't fluctuate like it does right now. And then 2 more new features that we wanted that they're going to add is something called denial of service, which is essentially software that sits at the ISP, the internet service provider, and they essentially scrub the incoming internet traffic to make sure that there's no viruses coming in. You guys have heard of all of the different crypto variants and all those things nowadays, so it recognizes those patterns and it'll stop it before it hits the city network. And then the last service we're going to get is a secure high-speed connection to Microsoft Cloud services. Because of a lot of our retention policies state that we have to hold things lifetime, we have to have a place to store all this data. So we're going to have a full private connection to Microsoft Cloud, and we'll be able to back up and restore in the event there is a disaster. Budgeting wise on this, we did budget the cost of transitioning from one service to another. Our monthly bill will increase by $1,804 a month. Currently, we average $14,100 a month on our phone bill. It's going to take it up to $15,904 with those added services. Any questions?
Mr. Grove.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My question is regarding the extended capacities that are offered under this contract with Level 3. we're already maxed out on our bandwidth now, so we couldn't provide additional services. Say, for example, if we wanted to scale up additional Wi-Fi deployments, in particular in
Right
the
now,
downtown.
no. That's why we haven't gone to LBB at this point, because we don't have the capacity. We
Right.
have the infrastructure there, but we can't expand services.
So moving forward, if we want to make these expansions, we have to have the underlying backbone. This, of course, constitutes that for our municipality.
Yes.
The DDoS, denial of service attack prevention at the node that we, it's upstream from, the city connection. That is in addition to denial of service, if you will. They would be able to stop any DDoS attacks.
Yes. Yes.
And,
they would-
in
they
addition
have
to the
scrubbing.
antivirus. And
Yes, there would be scrubbing centers at the ISP, and they constantly scrub our data. And if there is an issue, they quarantine it at the ISP, and then at that point, they notify my network administrators to check into it.
Okay, I would just point out that the value of that service alone probably exceeds the additional amount of money that this rate would go up, plus we'd have all this additional bandwidth to support the projects our municipality needs.
Absolutely.
I can make a motion on this unless somebody else wants to speak to it, Mr. Mayor.
Well, I've got to open up the public hearing and
Oh,
a few
yes,
other
right.
things yet.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I do have a question. Jonathan, what is the length of the term for the contract?
It's 5 years.
5 years. Okay, thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this matter? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
You knew I'd put my mic on, Mr. Mayor.
Go for it.
Thank you very much. I think this is a great opportunity for our city. So I will move to approve the master service agreement with Level 3 Communications to provide voice and data communications for city operations.
Second.
Okay. All right, we do have a motion and a second. Is there any final discussion? We're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, thank you. Item 8.8, award agreement for professional services for Sarah Park Sports Complex to Shepherd Westminster. How do you pronounce that? Westminster?
Shepherd Westminster, yes.
Okay, Shepherd Westminster, Inc.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. So before you, we are bringing the design contract with Shepherd Westminster to essentially start the design phase of the Sarah Park Sports Complex. So a couple of items here. The overall schedule for this project, mainly due to its size, it's going to take about 7 months worth of effort. And that will include staff involvement and reviews like any other capital project. And we would expect the design to be completed later this spring. And then within our CIP, the construction of the first phase of the sports complex is actually budgeted for next fiscal year, in the fiscal year 18-19 coming up. The current budget for that construction of phase one is just over $14 million. And this professional services contract is for $630,000. And I know that, percentages versed on, the percentage of design versus the estimated construction is important. And if you look at this one's quite a bit lower than our typical design contracts. And a lot of that, that has to do with a couple of items. One, because of the master planning effort that Shepherd Westminster has already been paid to look into this project that was done last year. So that does help reduce some of the overall costs. Plus you have the complexity. This is a park project, so it's not as complex as, say, a water booster station or a treatment process. So the complexity from an engineering standpoint is a lot less. Plus, really, it all comes down to economy of scale. You have a massive project that costs, totally up towards $20 million. The design fee is going to be substantially less than our typical 8 to 10%. So just a couple of things to point out there. I'm sure everyone knows where Sarah Park is, but I did want to just bring it up just in case. It is on the far south side of the city limits for those of you watching. And some of the tasks that they will be completing for us, standard drainage. Construction plans will include grading, the landscape, the hardscape components, all the irrigation, water and sewer to the site, power, lighting as well, and then the architectural component related to the buildings and the structures that we'll have on site. Another slide that you may recall seeing in the past is this slide from the master plan presentation. And I wanted to bring it up again because it's really important and kind of explains why phase one is so much more expensive than phase two. And that's because the goal moving forward is to actually design the entire sports complex as a whole, but to construct phase one, we also want to perform the mass grading for the entire site. It gives the ability to do a better mass balance with the grading, and overall it will reduce costs in the long run on grading that site as a whole. So phase one, a couple of things that phase one will bring when this phase is constructed is 4 new ball fields. These are multi-use fields, can be used for both softball and Little League. 2 multi-use fields here on the lower end of the complex. Restrooms, concessions, shade structures, bleachers. There will be playground facilities for the kids that aren't playing on the fields. There will be storage for maintenance items, and then parking and lighting like you would expect at any other park. Phase 2, at the point when that phase is constructed, it will bring 1 new collegiate size ball field, 6 multi-use fields. They are a little bit light up here on the upper screen, but more or less it outlines the potential for 6 soccer fields. Again, restrooms, shade structures, and all those other amenities that you would expect with a sports complex of this size. So this slide actually shows the new proposed sports complex in relation to the existing facilities. So you can see here we have the existing softball or the existing fields, Little League fields. You have the Havasu 95 Speedway. You also have the Sterling Field RC Plane runway here on the far west side. And then also what is currently the 928 MX track. So you can see that some of those existing uses will be affected by this new sports complex. And communication between city staff and those users have already undergone in preparation for this project. And with that, I will answer any questions you might have.
Questions from council?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Jeremy, you said that you've discussed the RC landing strip and the BMX track. Do we have a place to move them to where they're going to have the same amenities that they have now? And is that cost included in this?
Okay, I'm going to have to defer that question to Greg. He's had most of those conversations with those groups.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, I've met several times with the 928 folks, and once on site just recently with both the RC Planes and the 928 MX folks. And on the currently adopted Sarah Park Master Plan, there is a space allocated for the RC Plane group. They're currently actually in a spot that's not, excuse me, allocated for them. So there is room. We walked it. There is room, and the 2 of them are actually very cordial and feel that they can coexist in that same area. So the 928 MX is making plans to relocate almost directly across Dub Campbell Parkway at the end of their current season, which would be next April.
Right, and if I could add on, and I met with the 928 folks. I guess their contract ends in February, but we told them that we would extend it to the end of their regular season to make it easier for them. And in terms of cost of moving, they really have very little facilities there, it was all donated to them, and we agreed that if they had fencing they needed to move, or that building that they have, we would move that on their behalf, but that was pretty much it.
Okay, I know for the BMX track, there's a lot of grading that needs to be done for the kids to ride their bike, but they also have runways for the RC folks and a helicopter landing pad and all that out there. Is all that going to have to be moved? And if so,
Eventually, yes.
who bears the cost of that?
It would be their group.
It would be their group.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
All right, so those are the only two that will be impacted?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing. Questions or a motion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion.
Please.
I move to award the agreement for professional services for the Sarah Park Sports Complex to Shepherd Weitzner Incorporated. If I said that right.
All right. Okay, thank you. We do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? We're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
If I could just tag on with a comment. Moving forward with the design of these sports complex, it's good because we had the master plan done, we did the study, we're moving forward with this project. But part of the discussion, or at least the consideration, needs to include the fact that once these fields are built, the ongoing cost of operating and maintaining these fields is not protected from expenditure limitation. And so I would propose that that while we will move forward with the design of these fields, and they are included in next year's budget for construction under CIP, that we delay actually putting a shovel in the ground until we know the outcome of the expenditure limitation vote, which would be in the primary election in the fall of next year. So we're, any delay that there might be would only be a couple of months anyway. But nonetheless, if the voters in the community elect not to allow for the removal of expenditure limitation from the way that we budget, we'll have to have a serious discussion about adding, $500,000 to $1 million a year in operating costs, when in fact, we would be looking at making pretty severe cuts just to satisfy the expenditure limitation. So, food for thought.
Well, and it's important that we educate the community as to what this expenditure limitation, because it's really going to, if we don't get that reset button voted on positively, the growth of this community will be pretty stunted. Yes. Exactly. We won't be able to keep up with the 96,000 people that we'll eventually have because of that state law that was passed in 1980. And once again, we were incorporated in 1978, so we have this little tiny base that we're working off of, and all we really want to do with this vote in 2018 is to reset the base so that it allows us to grow to our maximum of 96,000, and then we should be set to be able to cater to the community and make sure that we have the police, that we have the fire, that we have parks, etc., because the expenditure limitation impacts every expense. It isn't, oh, well, you just can't have a new park. Every dollar we spend impacts it. So all of the council, it behooves us to make sure we educate the public on the expenditure limitation, because I know this council wants to make sure this park gets built and we have the wherewithal to maintain it.
And while I would have every expectation that the citizens, will see the logic in that and allow, for allow us to get the state out of our budgeting business. And you know, I would be nervous about moving forward with an actual construction project until we know the outcome of that vote.
Okay, item 8.9, award bid for the wash stabilization improvements, bid package number 2 to CS Legacy Construction, Inc.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Mayor. I'm actually not going to present on the next 2 items, but I did want to give a quick introduction to you. Dustin Salisbury, he is new to the engineering group, and he comes to us from the Maricopa County Flood Control District. So he was with that agency for over 12 years. So I welcome Dustin. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Jeremy. Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you. I'm here to present the wash stabilization bid package number 2, project number DR1010. The construction bid was advertised on June 15th of 2017. The bid was opened on July 13th of 2017. The parent low bidder is CS Legacy Construction Incorporated. This project incorporates the Hillside Drain number 5 and Daytona Wash number 6, bed and bank improvement and slope stabilization. It is a 120-day contract with a likely duration between September 17th and September of this year and January of next year. The total bid for the project was $3,256,325. This is the Hillside Drain. It is bounded by Daniel Drive and Avalon Avenue. Runs parallel to Inverness Drive. You can see this was the original estimate for number of structures that we had on the project put together by Dibble. Here we have the Daytona Wash, the partial view of it. Here's a much better view. You can see it's bounded by Bunker Drive, T Drive, and Daytona Avenue. And these are the project limits. This is an example of our current project, what we'll be building more of the same. This is a drop structure in the Havasu Pie Wash where 2 washes actually meet. The blocks down in the bottom are energy dissipators. They come in at 2 different angles, and those blocks slow it down so it doesn't erode it further. And you can see the excavator on the bottom end of it digging a trench. It's a cutoff wall to keep the water from eroding the downstream portion. You can see the construction of they're placing the slopes in the lower right hand photo. Here we have an example of Gabion mattress assembly in the Pima Wash. They have these wire baskets and they fill them with rock and stack them on top of each other. I'm sure you've seen them around town. This is how it gets put together. It's like a big puzzle. And here is some of the good we do. This is a slope condition before and after shot. You can see how it's falling away, and we've come back and armored it with the slope paving. And these are examples of the work that we'll be continuing on this project. Are there any questions?
Questions?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I wanted to ask about the image that you showed with the rocks. Is that kind of like a high-tech version of riprap? It's designed also to dissipate and maintain the integrity of the bank itself.
Exactly. The baskets just hold them together better so they don't spread out and fall on down into the wash and go away. They just hold them as a structure.
And they go through some kind of process, I assume, to be able to decide which one of the particular energy dissipation mitigation techniques that they use and where they're most appropriate?
Yes, sir. There was a report done by Dibble, and they chose the best combination between CSA, that's the soil cement, and Gabion baskets in each of these locations, and they decided on the most cost-effective and most effective method for stabilizing these slopes.
Other questions? Around here, we call Gabion baskets rock prisons.
Fair enough.
All right, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this matter? Seeing none, we're going to close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Motion? Did you have
Please.
a question, David?
I just wanted to make a comment right quick.
Sure.
It seems like a lot of money, but when you actually look at this, and the people on TV can't see it, but this is to shore up 77 miles of washes, is that correct?
Eventually, yes, sir. The master plan presented by Dibble incorporated 77 miles of washes in this.
But the 3.2 doesn't cover 77 miles.
That's what I wanted to know.
No, sir.
Do you know how many miles this covers?
Let's see. I'm not 100% sure. I believe this one would cover roughly. Let's see. They've got stationing here in. Let's see. We've got 1,000, 1,500.
A couple, 3 miles.
And another 1,500. Roughly about a mile and a half.
Okay, that makes more sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and Mr. Cassens and I actually went back to Washington, D.C. one time to address this issue with our legislators because these are under the jurisdiction of the federal government. And we said, you know, we just got done paying for a sewer project, and now you're asking us to shore up more land or these washes that are under your jurisdiction. We want some help. We didn't get any. What a surprise. Yeah, they did make us get a permit but to work in it. But yeah, unfortunately, this is not uncommon in Arizona. Many of the other communities are having some of the same issues built around washes.
And I get that. And it seems to be working somewhat. I mean, there wasn't any major road closures after this last monsoon because of washes going across the road. So doing a little bit here and a little bit there seems to be working. So.
And before you make your, if I could ask Tabitha just quickly, this comment, or the comment in here about something didn't get completed and must be paid with current budget, but the flood control dollars didn't get moved. Help us out.
Yeah, so basically what happened is that we are within the project budget, but work that we thought would get finished last year didn't, but we didn't know that in time to move the money forward. So this year's budget is short, and so we will borrow from other funding, and because it's the beginning of the year, we're not exactly sure how that will come together, but there's ample budget. And so this is something that you will likely see again when we bring a budget amendment back to you. But the project isn't over budget. We just didn't have the opportunity to put it in the right year.
Perfect. Got it. Thank you. All yours.
Motion, Mr. Mayor.
Please.
I move to award the Schedule A base bid and Schedule B additive bid for the Wash Stabilization Improvement Bid Package Number 2 project to CS Legacy Construction, Inc.
Second motion.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? We're ready to vote?
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item 8.10, award agreement for professional services for the wash stabilization improvements bid package number 2 project to Carollo Engineers, Inc. Dustin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. We have a professional services contract. Carollo presented an estimate of $150,000, 4.6% of the construction budget for 120 days of construction management services with an anticipated notice to proceed in September of this year and expected completion of January of next year.
Okay.
Any questions?
Questions? Once again, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Motion?
Please.
I move to award the agreement for professional services for the wash stabilization improvement bid package number 2 project to Carollo Engineers Incorporated.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? I think we are ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, moving on to item 8.11, approve sole source purchases of wastewater treatment plant parts from Schreiber LLC. Andy?
Mayor and council, care to just request
Turn on your microphone right in front of you. There you go. Got it.
Testing. Good evening, Mayor and council. I'm Andy Astor for Utilities. I'm here to request the approval of the expenditure for the sole source for the Schreiber parts to fix the Mulberry wastewater reclamation facility. And it's a sole source agreement and it was allocated. We just are requesting approval at this time.
Yeah, whenever it's sole source, it has to go in front of council. And I assume we're not finding any aftermarket
No,
parts.
sir, there's no other reasonable avenue for us to pursue. It's a
Okay.
sole source provider, proprietary equipment.
Okay. Any other questions before I open up the public hearing? All right, once again, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
motion?
Yes, please.
I move to approve the sole source purchases for wastewater treatment plant parts from Schreiber LLC.
Second.
We do have a motion and a second. Any final discussion? We're ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right, two more public hearing items left. Item 8.12, award bid for maintenance street sweeping to Swept Away LLC. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The item before you is to award our annual sweeping award. It's to a new contractor this year. They were the low bidder, but we've gotten good references from them. We did like the fact that we had 5 bidders and competition in that. It is for what could be a 5-year contract, but we would have that option to renew based on performance and whether we felt costs would change. I would also note that this award includes the option of a third sweep, but we don't necessarily intend to do that automatically. We're going to sweep sometime in October. We'll sweep sometime in the spring. If it's necessary to sweep sometime in January, February, we have that option to do so. But obviously, if there's no storms and nothing happens, we won't do that third sweep just to expend the money because it is about $45,000. So again, this allows us to do that. And then in the future, that's what exactly we would do. Each year we'd do their 2 normal sweeps. And then if it was necessary, if we had a late winter storm or some other reason we needed to do that work, we would do so. Be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Mark, I know this is kind of an odd question, but one thing I notice is we have like 2 seasons, the fall and the spring season, and every one of the bidders had the same price, whether it be fall or spring, except for the people who are being replaced. They had a higher one in the fall. Yeah. Any idea why I think?
Bidders can do all kinds of interesting things about what they've got schedule-wise or what they're doing. For example, their actual price didn't change from the previous contract years, and so my expectation is the next time they bid on something, they'll look at what they did and how they did it and make those choices. But yeah, it's quite interesting how that science or process goes by.
Yeah, it was odd.
Sometimes bidders will round numbers, sometimes bidders will not round numbers, and it's, sometimes they'll always like a 66 or a 99 or whatever choice they make. It's interesting.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, Mark, can you explain how we use our current equipment to augment what we do twice a year? Like if the roads are getting really bad?
Sure. For example, we'll be sweeping with our own equipment until this contract comes in sometime in October, and we'll adjust as things happen, whether we ask them to come in a little bit earlier or a little bit later. There's some years that because storm cleanup hasn't occurred yet, and they don't do storm cleanup sweeping, we'll kind of push them a little bit later and then have them come sweep everything. So basically what happens is we have the one operating pickup sweeper and a couple of kick brooms, and we operate those to take care of the emergency things and also our critical areas. And we'll do that as we spot around and with our manpower available. And then knowing that we have this as a backup, that when we finally have them come in, they will be able to cover everything, and we'll be assured that at that point in time we've covered. Because basically what happens is they'll bring in 5 or 6 sweepers, and in a matter of 2 to 3 weeks they will sweep the entire town. And that's actually comforting, because then you know you haven't missed anything or something hasn't gotten stormed in between times, and so that works pretty well. And then we'll do that again in the spring. Sometime after the chip seal work gets done, you're able to cover basically all the city streets. And part of that is a part of our stormwater prevention, because one of the difficulties with the pollution in stormwater is the road oils and the debris and the heavy metals that get placed on the roadway. So what we're picking up in dust and debris, especially from those later spring sweeps, are materials that if we didn't sweep them all up everywhere would be in our washes and down into our streets. And so that's one of the things where sometimes, why are you sweeping a street that doesn't really have a lot of rocks on it? Well, the answer is because you're still picking up that road grime and all of those other things. So again, we're comfortable that this is a great expenditure, because they, like I said, they bring in 6 or 7 sweepers, and in a matter of a couple weeks they're able to do that, and we wouldn't be able to commit those forces for that length of time period. We can commit them for 2 or 3 days and hit certain areas, or a week, but yeah, for 3 or 4 weeks it would be difficult.
Okay, so our intention is always to keep some equipment of our own?
Oh gosh, yeah, you have
Okay.
to. And this is really a change of as the business changes, because probably as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, you couldn't get sweepers to come to remote areas and do this work. Matter of fact, that's one of the reasons that ADOT has such a difficult time getting the Highway 95 swept, and the reason it looks debris strewn is because their contract sweepers don't want to visit these rural areas and do that. But because we kind of do the work the way we do it, it's a lot of miles all at one time, they're able to kind of work through that process.
Other questions?
I do, and I don't know if you know the answer to this, but I hear a lot of people asking, well, how come we don't hire somebody local? Do we even have a local business that wanted to bid on this?
We actually have a local contractors that bid on our parking lot sweeping, and that's one of the things that this work is our mainline street sweeping, which requires the bigger pickup equipment. The parking lot sweepers that we've been bidding, probably about 8 or 10 years, they've been doing our parking lot work, and that was also a recognition of the right piece of equipment for the right job. It didn't pay to send a big street sweeper into a small little parking lot and try and do that work. So yeah, we have local bidders that do the smaller stuff, but there's nobody locally, even within the Mojave County area, that does street sweeping. Again, that's why ADOT has such a difficult time. As a matter of fact, we've had to do some emergency services on the highway for ADOT accident sweeping, because they don't have working sweepers.
Any other questions? All right, this is a public hearing. Would anybody like to address the council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing.
Mr. Mayor, motion?
Yes, please.
I move to award the bid for maintenance street sweeping to Swept Away LLC and authorize a 3-year term contract with an option to renew a maximum of 2 additional 12-month terms.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. If you could hit your, there it is, I got it. Is there any final discussion? We are ready to vote.
Motion carries 6-0.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Okay, final public hearing, item 8.13, presentation and discussion regarding verification of payment to qualified organizations under a special event liquor license. Ms. Gary.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Council asked for a discussion item to be brought back to discuss the verification of payment to qualified organizations under a special event permit. Staff is here to present some brief background information as well as some results of inquiries made to other cities to help assist the council in its discussion of this item. Just to make it more interesting and maybe slightly confusing, the statute for special event liquor licenses was amended during the recent legislative session, and so which goes into effect tomorrow. So we'll point out some of those changes as we go through our presentation. However, the department doesn't have the new applications done or wouldn't release them to us today, or the new rules. So there's still some areas we're not sure if there'll be changes or not. The good news is the changes seem to be responsive to some of the concerns that have been brought up. So here we go. The Arizona Department of Liquor License and Controls issues the special event liquor license. They're temporary and non-transferable licenses. When a special event is going to be held on a location without a permanent liquor license or on an area that is not covered by the license, that application must be approved by the local government. The applicants are limited, and this is one of the areas that's slightly changed. So it's currently defined as it must be a charitable, civic, fraternal, political, or religious organization as defined in the statute, which is just generally very generically defined. And they're known as the qualifying organization. They retain political in the new law, but they add in more specifically now, or a nonprofit entity that is organized as a nonprofit corporation, LLC, trust, or other entity eligible for designation as a 501c under the Internal Revenue Code. So the current law alludes to it being formal, and what goes into effect tomorrow is very specific that it must be formally organized. Under the current rules, the qualifying organizations won't be granted special event licenses for more than 10 days in a calendar year. We're unclear if this rule will remain the same or be changed. As far as locations, the locations that do not have an active or permanent liquor license are limited to 12 special event liquor licenses annually. That's going to change. Starting tomorrow, those locations can have a total of 30 days of special event licenses. Licensed locations or government-owned or controlled locations have no limitations. Here's a big part that's going to change, and these are good changes, I think. So an applicant can agree with a special event contractor to assist the applicant in selling and serving liquor at the special event. What was previously or currently today until tomorrow referred to as a promoter in the department literature is now going to be called the special event contractor. This special event contractor must be specifically listed on the application, but they must also now provide identification and background information sufficient for the department to be able to verify their identity. They must also provide proof of authority to conduct business in Arizona, and this may include also the department can ask for proof that they have received state and local permits that may be required. The state will also keep a list of the special event contractors that are in good standing, so we'll have that information available. For the new applicants for their initial special event applications or license, they can be required to demonstrate they are qualified, capable, and reliable to conduct a special event. All of this is new. And they may also require training for new servers that are in conjunction with a new special event contractor or a new special event applicant. So where there was no major oversight before, it seems like they're ramping up a little bit on the oversight over not only new applicants, but particularly over these special event contractors. Violations could result in limiting the ability of the applicant or the contractor to receive special event licenses for periods up to a year. There's also some new provisions that allow the department to examine the books, records, and papers related to a license and related to a special event contractor. So they're allowed to dig in, I think, a little bit deeper into these contractors now than what they did in the past. What remains the same, at least in the statute, is that the applicant or the qualified organization must receive at least 25% of the gross revenue of all liquor sold during the special event. The application must include a contract between the applicant and what currently is called the promoter, but will be the special event contractor. Well, we're not sure at this point in time. The rules specify that the contract must include the promoter duties and also notification that the qualifying organization will receive 25% of the sale of alcohol. I'm anticipating that the rules will go into a little bit more detail about what's going to be required of the special event contractor, but we won't know that until tomorrow or maybe a couple days after. So as soon as we receive that information, we'll be sure to pass that on to the council. I'm going to turn the presentation over to Mr. Allen, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the city's current process.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I can go over historically what has happened. It sounds like things may change a little bit starting tomorrow. But historically, the process, it's on our end is quite simple. I'm typically contacted by what has been referred to as the promoter or by the nonprofit who's the actual applicant for the event. and I'll go over the process with them, the requirements, the fees that the state charges and the city charges, and go over the application with them. Often the applications return to me either by mail, sometimes they just drop them off at my office, or they'll come in and actually discuss it with me. At that time, I let them know that the promoter, or the applicant, who is the nonprofit on the actual application, they're the only ones at this point that the state would have any contact with. If the state had questions about the application, they wouldn't contact myself, and they won't contact the promoter. They would send a letter to the nonprofit. Unfortunately, the nonprofits don't always check. They're not waiting for a letter from the state, so they wouldn't check, and often the event would show up and they wouldn't have a liquor license because the nonprofit didn't know that they should be looking out for a letter from the state with questions regarding their application, and the state would return their application and their fee. And again, they don't notify myself and they don't notify the promoter. And there's been a few instances where that's caused issues. Currently, the way we run it, they have to get the application into me at least 2 weeks prior to a city council meeting because it needs to go on the agenda. Again, not all organizers are organized, and they'll come into me a week or two before the event hoping to get a special event liquor license. But because of the time constraints of having to go before council, sometimes it isn't possible. Because when I get the application in, I have to do a council communication, get it on the agenda for council, and as I stated, that has to be at least 2 weeks before a council meeting. Then once council has approved it, I then mail it to the state, and the state requires a minimum of 10 working days to review and go over their process. And so typically we like to see about a 60-day window where they have to turn in their application 60 days prior to their event. And in some instances it hasn't worked, and we've actually had events cancel because they rely on that liquor license, and nonprofits for their fundraising rely on it, and they've had to cancel or postpone events because of time constraints. So the process as has been discussed over the prior council meetings would actually improve the ability for applicants to apply. It would make it easier for the public and for the nonprofits to do it the way that we've discussed without having to go before council. So really that's my involvement with them. I try to explain to the nonprofits that it is their liquor license because there have been promoters that treat it as though it's theirs. And it's the nonprofits. They're the ones who, in many instances, they will actually run the bar. They'll count the money and turn it back over to 75% to the promoter. Some promoters like to treat it the other way around and say, we're going to control this, and that's not the way it's set up because it's not the promoter's license, it's the applicant's license, which is the nonprofit. So that's the way it's set up at this time that we've historically done the process for the special event liquor license.
Okay, and we'll turn the presentation over to Ms. Williams, and she's going to go over some results that she gathered.
Okay, so we did reach out to the Arizona cities and towns to find out if they had any formal verification process, and they did not. So we could not find a city or town that had anything in place for any verification of nonprofit revenues. The only one that we did hear from a while back was the Mojave County Board of Supervisors. They did create a process for verifying revenues paid to the nonprofits in which they send a notice to that applicant requesting proof of payment for only the third-party organizers, or what they're now referring to as the contractors. And then they, said that it's not a real formal process, and there isn't a specific penalty for non-compliance of that. So it's just a very informal way that they put that together. So no other cities or towns had any verification process that they do. I did speak with the state, and they do have a way for, if there are any issues or anything that comes forward, you can file a complaint. The complaint goes through to the department, and then they do have investigators that will go out and investigate any complaint that is reported to them. If any violations are found, the state may limit the right of the licensee to obtain a special event license for a period up to 1 year, or may limit the right of the special event contractor to support any licensed special event for a period up to 1 year. And this will become effective with the new law tomorrow. That's all I had.
So to be clear, Mojave County asks for proof of payment, but they can't do anything about it if they don't get it.
They send a notice and...
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, they send a notice basically asking to sign verification, but I don't know that they actually do an audit verification.
Yeah,
of
I
the
mean, you
files.
could send a copy of a check, but you don't know if it's the right number or not.
Correct. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have, or we can aid you in your discussion any way you might need.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, Kelly, you had mentioned the identity and the authority of a person. How are they, have they given any indication what you're going to have to supply to the department for them to understand that you have the authority or that you're identified with the nonprofit?
We don't have any, as far as the nonprofit, as far as providing the identification and background information, that was for the contractor. And so I think that's to prove that they are licensed to do business in the state of Arizona, that they are somehow formally authorized to do business, and then to be able to identify them if they do any background checks or any kind of checks like that. As far as what they're going to require for the nonprofit entities that are organized, I don't know for sure. I mean, obviously they're going to have to be organized as a nonprofit corporation or an LLC or trust with the state.
So then now you have to apply to be a contractor then, or how do you become a contractor?
That's like a promoter. So it's the same as it exists today. So as an applicant, you would apply as the applicant and you would have your promoter, which they're now calling a special event contractor. And exactly how all of that's going to work, how the rules or the laws and how the application is going to look, we're not certain how it's all going to fall together. But we're assuming that the special event contractor is going to be the promoter for all purposes.
I have a question. Could it be possible to still do what the county is doing, and the repercussion would be up to, if Charlie is the one that is going to do the liquor license, that if he is to look back and see that past promoters didn't provide those, couldn't that be a repercussion that they wouldn't get the liquor license renewed again if for a different event? Does that make sense?
We only provide a recommendation, so it would be that we would recommend non-approval for that purpose or that reason, and I don't know how much weight that would hold. The city doesn't have any of the authority that's been granted to the department as far as examining the books and the records and asking for that information, so that's questionable whether that's even permittable by municipality or even the county. But it doesn't mean that we wouldn't be able to. Just we only are aware of one place that's doing it, and it doesn't appear to be very much. I mean, we could put that into place. I'm just not sure that it would address any of the issues or concerns that you have.
But what I'm hearing though is that the applicant, i.e. the nonprofit, can file a complaint with the state liquor board, and they're the ones with all the authority.
Absolutely, and I think that's how the discussion went today when Kelly contacted the department, that if there are issues, if there are problems, you would lodge the complaint with the department and they would go in and investigate it. Now they've added all these new tools and requirements,
Sure.
so they can obtain that information that would allow them to do that investigation.
You actually answered the question, or asked the question that I was going to ask. Have we ever received a complaint? Because I know it doesn't come through us, it goes through Arizona liquor license, but
Formally, not that I'm aware of. Have I heard items and concerns being brought up with respect to the discussion that we're having today? Yes. I don't know that would address those comments or those concerns, but I've heard of comments and concerns related to overall the process.
so maybe what we could do is if we do get a complaint here, we can have a process where we can refer them to the Arizona Liquor Board
Oh,
so they can
absolutely.
file a complaint through them, because it's really not our jurisdiction to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's the best way. I mean, I understand the nonprofit not getting paid sometimes. On the other hand, that nonprofit should make sure everybody in the world knows about it so that promoter can't find another nonprofit to swindle. But there's another piece of it, and that is, and I think Mr. Allen was correct, whenever you let the promoter count the money, you don't know if you're getting the right amount or not. And so there isn't anything we have authority to fix that. But the State Liquor Board sounds like they will now have the authority starting tomorrow.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I had addressed this before. I think that I had a specific member of a nonprofit come to me regarding this, and this is why I brought this to light. One of the members didn't actually know that one of their board allowed this permit to go through with the promoter. The rest of their board didn't know.
So that's a board matter.
I understand.
Not a city matter.
Yes, I understand that, but your comment about their board should know and their nonprofit should know, this was the reason it came to, because their board didn't know. They didn't know that one of their...
Well, I guess so now that they do, they should probably admonish that other board member. I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I get that, but that's, even the state would say, well, you know, board, you need to get your act together. And I'm not trying to be harsh on that matter, but that's a board matter, and I don't know what we could do about it. I think, because I've heard a couple of times in years past where a particular nonprofit or two did not get their check, and I know that nonprofit was pretty vocal about it until they finally, the promoter finally gave them something. Whether it was the correct amount, I have no idea. I really don't.
The parties are still required to enter into a contract and supply that with their application, and that contract is going to specify in there that the nonprofit is to be paid 25% of the proceeds. And so no matter what the verification process may be at the state level, they still have a contract claim against that other party if they are not paid. So there is a legal remedy for those two contracting parties if one of the parties fails to abide by the contract. And so the city will not put itself in the middle of that contract if it can help itself. We don't need to be in the middle of that litigation. And so that really is the best remedy for those parties.
And excuse me, I got a drink of water here. When it comes to counting the money, how do you get the nonprofit to be able to do that? Because I would imagine these promoters have their own volunteers, they have everybody, and they have control of that.
They do. And as was stated, there's a contract that typically goes with the event, and they'll outline in there who's going to, the applicant has to agree if they're not going to run the concession, that there's an agreement and a contract with the promoter, and the promoter will state, we're going to run it, we're going to count. Now, the applicant can say no. They can say, no, it's my liquor license, I'm going to run it with my own people, and if the promoter doesn't agree, then there's no liquor license at that event. So really, that's all between the applicant and the promoter. We do have some applicants that, even if they're not running the actual bar, they will have one of their board members behind the bar monitoring what's taking place.
And as a courtesy, can we remind those nonprofits they ought to do that?
Oh, absolutely, and I do. I haven't had a single complaint. I've heard of other events taking place that weren't part of city property where people have called me and it wasn't anything that we had permitted. But I've never received a single complaint. But I do always, because of the hearsay that I've heard of other events happening, sure, I do discuss that with the nonprofits. And most of the nonprofits that I work with are reoccurring people I know. And the only, to address an earlier question, the only verification we have is the application is notarized in two places. the person filling out the application has to sign and notarize, and then a board member or a chairperson has to also sign and notarize. More often than not, it's the same person. And most applications come to me already signed and notarized.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
How do you verify the board members to make sure that they're actually the board members? Because that was also a concern I
Sure.
heard.
And like I said, most of them come to me already signed and notarized. And you have to rely on that notary public stamp that's correct and true. I am a notary as well, and there's no process. Typically, it's people that I know, people that I deal with in the community. I have never had anybody come in, a local person with a nonprofit I was unaware with, knowing that they weren't a part of it. If I'm unfamiliar, we have had a couple of out-of-state nonprofits come in because they don't need to be a local, they don't even need to be an Arizona nonprofit. For my own well-being, will go on the IRS webpage and do a nonprofit check to make sure that they are a legitimate nonprofit. Now, it doesn't tell me whether or not they're current. It just says that, yes, this is their number. But to actually verify whether or not a person is a board member, there's no way of doing that except accepting the notary stamp when I receive that application.
So, any direction at all? I mean,
I'm happy with how everything goes now. So I think it's the nonprofit's responsibility to know what their rights are. And I think that they should hold their promoter, now the event contractor, accountable to it. And there's lots of things that we heard today, and I've seen it done successfully around our community, for years. So I'm sure there's some bad apples out there, but I've not heard any of those. And I work fairly closely with event promoters on a regular basis. So that's my position on it.
anyone else? Okay, well, if you could at least brief us as to what the new rules, and then, because I think that'd be helpful if Brian has the ability to brief the nonprofits. Here's your rights, the new rules, etc. At least it gives them some recourse to contact the state and get some results.
Absolutely.
Okay, current events, now that I got part of my voice back here. Are there any council committee reports? None? Item 10, our final call to the public. Would anybody like to address the council?
Good evening, council, and thanks for being here tonight. My name is Frankie Lyons with Veterans United Arizona, nonprofit organization here in Havasu. One of the issues that came up as the nonprofits not getting paid, is there a time limit that they're supposed to get a check back from the promoter? And if so, what is it? Because some of the nonprofits have waited over 4 months to get paid.
There isn't in the statute, but hopefully in that agreement that enters in between the nonprofit and the promoter, that you would specify the timeframes in which that payment should be made.
Okay, because I know a lot of the nonprofits right now have just obliterated that issue of let's have a contract. There is no contract by many of them, and the nonprofit is the one who suffers, and that's what helps our community. So I'm hoping that as they get an application they filled out, that they're informed of their duties again to be accountable for what they're doing within our community, so our community does not suffer from their inability to follow through. And there has been several times organizations have not been paid from the promoter, or they figure the 25% is on the net and it's on the gross, not the net. And that needs to be something brought to them, because they figure it's 25% of after all the bills are paid. And that's not, from what I understand, that's not true. But I thank the council for listening. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? All right, future meetings. August 22nd, which is in 2 weeks. That regular meeting will be canceled because most of us, if not all, will be at the League of Arizona Cities and Towns Conference. Tuesday, September 12th at 6 p.m., we will have a regular meeting, and then another regular meeting. It's on September 26, 2017 at 6 p.m. Any future agenda items from council?
Mayor, I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't think we did the public hearing for the last item, although we did have a speaker get up for call to the public, but in case anybody else in the audience wanted to speak on that item or thought it was closed, we could open and close it real quick.
Sure. So we'll go back to item 8.13, which was presentation discussion regarding verification of payment to qualified organizations. Was there anyone else that wanted to speak on that matter? All right, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you for reminding me. Future agenda items. Is there a motion to adjourn? All right, unless there's an objection, I don't see any from the audience. We are adjourned.